All right, good evening everyone, how are we? Good. July, I can't tell who anyone is with all those masks. All right, July 2021 meeting, welcome. For anyone who's new, the toilets are just down the hallway there, and yeah, it just looks like anyone not signed in on the app, there's a thing on the board there. I'm pretty sure Simone would have got you all. What else we got? Google group we use a Google group for letting everyone know what we're up to. You can let Les know your email address if you want to be on that list. And there's the national AEVA website that we also post events on. We're live streaming. We do a video recording of this, and you can find that on my YouTube channel. All right, the agenda for tonight. Unfortunately, we had one speaker pull out because they were a COVID close contact for one of the locations that was listed, so they're coming next month. But we'll do our usual EV events and planning rundown. We'll do a discussion on new infrastructure, and then Francisco and Graham are going to have a chat about what they've done to that i-miev out there. It's pretty cool. I've had a drive of it. It's good fun. We've got Luke and Nick are going to talk about I think the Toka group complianced a tow bar for the Model 3, and we've got one on display out there at the moment, so that's they're going to have a chat about that. And Nathan's going to have his normal segment that we do each month, and then we're going to have Xavier up to talk about the rare Honda Insight 2022 model. Okay, that wasn't as funny as what I thought it was in my head. Okay, so what year is it, mate? 01, 2001. Okay, still looking pretty good, bud, isn't it? So. Okay, all right, let's go. Recently held EV events. The first one, not technically an event, but Alina Didi, who we've had speak here a couple of times, finally launched the Give It a Whirl website that allows people to book test rides or test drives with EV owners rather than going through the dealerships. It's had a soft launch, hasn't been widely promoted at just this stage, but you can see there's Gary and John, myself, Chris and Alina herself. So a few Queenslanders involved already, that's good to see. And Alina's also contacted me today to say she's going to be part of our EV Experience Day in September with organising the scheduling. A little bit hard to see here, but this is my schedule. So this is basically what the people who are offering to take the public out and about or speak to them, you can sort of select, I blank out parts of my week, and members of the public can block a half an hour time frame. And I guess because it's early stages, we haven't actually had a booking yet, but I guess we get notifications and then organise with them to show them the car. So you can filter it by car, you can filter it by location, and it's a good idea. So I'm really supportive of that. So that was Give It a Whirl. The ACF, Australian Conservation Fund, had an EV day at Holland Park, and Les, next photo. Our fearless secretary giving a chat. Did you know this photo was on here? No? Okay. How did that go, mate?
Oh, it was alright.
Yeah. How many EVs were there?
We have about 18, I think it was.
18. That's pretty good. I think there's John Murray as well, talking to someone. By the look of it. Okay, 18. That was pretty good. Unfortunately, I was working. I couldn't attend that one. But all right. We had the North Lakes EV meetup. We had 10 EVs there this time. It's getting a bit cooler, so attendance isn't as great as the summer months, but even 10 cars is just great to have a good powwow with people for a few hours. And what do we have there? A few Konas. I think it's 3 Konas and 3 Teslas, a BMW, and maybe 1 or 2 others. But the next one's down at the Logan IKEA, beginning of August, and I'll do the normal Facebook posting for that. Luke and Toka organised a mystery trip up to a Gympie location, and they ended up going to Kalula Berries. It's like a strawberry farm, and they ended up getting 12. Was it all Tesla, Luke?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. All Model 3s?
Not quite. 1S and 1X.
Okay. Yeah.
2S and 1X.
Yeah. The Model 3 is very popular. I see them everywhere. So that was a good run, good day out, by the look of it. There were, what's the next photo? I think it might be, it's a different event. There was a few other photos there, but it's quite a good venue for an EV cruise.
Yeah, quite good. Decent hike. We're probably verging on being too far away.
Yeah.
30-ish Ks.
Yeah.
Just for, it's a whole day out. Right?
I know. That's what I kind of struggle sometimes when I want to organise a cruise, is that like people sometimes, I think they just want a short, sharp little event, and they don't necessarily want to drive for 2 hours and then drive home via a charge, and then so it's a 3-hour trip home or something, you know. So
it was a great venue, and that long drive was just up the freeway.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not an interesting road. It's not a mountain road. It's
Nah.
anything in particular. So,
Yeah. Okay. Paul Guy organised or asked for a few cars to show up at the Gap State School for the local member for what jurisdiction's that? I didn't write it down. Cooper. John T. Bush is the local member for there, and he did a display and got a few EVs there. Just the next one, Les. Just there's the Paul's EV hub setup. And there was a bunch of other stalls and stuff happening down there too. So, was that well attended, or?
Yeah, it's very well attended. There's a lot of questions. I mean, 2 of the cars are big, and I think we'll just get busy with that.
Actually, why don't you grab that, mate?
Yeah. It was busy. 2 of the car reviews, the Tesla and the Switchy, and Gordon had the lead. And there were just questions all day long.
Yeah.
And really well.
Yeah. So if you're getting so many, if we get so many questions at these things where we only have 4, 5 to 10 EVs, like when we do the EV experience, it should be pretty full on, I think, because hopefully there'll be a fair bit of interest in what we're doing there if we promote it right, and we should see quite a lot of people at our event. What have we got next, mate? Future EV events. Tomorrow morning, there's Carmageddon, which is a paid event at the MTAQ at 8 Mile Plains. I'll just run down these because I've got some graphics coming up. Just thought I should add sometimes when there's an online event as well. So Solar Citizens have got the Charge Ahead campaign launch coming up. For anyone who is looking for information on that, just go to the Solar Citizens webpage. As shown there, 29th of July. As I mentioned before, the Logan IKEA just EV catch-up will be on the August the 8th. We'll do the hall meeting on August the 18th. And out at Toowoomba, on the 29th of August. The Renew are doing an EV and Bike Expo. I think I've got a graphic for that coming up. 5th of September, Green Heart Fair, Carindale. We'll do an EV catch-up on the Gold Coast. And obviously our the EV Experience, I don't know why I didn't write that, the EV Experience Day on September the 26th. So just some of the finer points of these. Carmageddon tomorrow for anyone. Just,
What I didn't you know about or missed is that Tocca's got a track day with the BMW club at Lakeside on the 6th of August, Toca and BMW Club Track Day, Lakeside. Okay, good to know. That's just on the Toca, just search for the Toca webpage to find details? To get the discount entry, you need to be a Toca member.
You need to be a Toca member? Okay, that's all right. So just for Carmageddon tomorrow, this is the same similar layout to what they had in 2019. They've got like cars and stuff on display. I think AEVA is down here with Jeff and my car will be on display. And then they'll have a bunch of seating and they've got a large number of CEOs and that type of thing coming in to have a chat on panels and experts and that type of stuff. And then they have a break and have a bit of food and then they have more people speak. So it's, last time I went there, they had the Hyundai Nexo and Ioniqs and a few other, like there was the Ace car was there and Model X, range of different other EVs that are coming to market. So it was quite good when I went there 2 years ago. So looking forward to that tomorrow. 8:30 to 3, but I think it's about $20 to go. Next one, mate. This is the Toowoomba Renew. Of course, I cannot read any of that. So it's at the Cobb & Co Museum, Sunday, 29th of August. Yeah, EV and Bike Expo, it's pretty self-explanatory. Yep, and as a few of you may have seen online, our event. So we're doing a show and shine for anyone who's not familiar. We're doing a large car EV display and the owners be around those cars, happy to speak to people. We're doing test rides with people. So we're looking for maybe a few people to just cruise the streets in their EV and take people for a ride. And then there'll be a bunch of stalls, EV related stalls and scooter and bike test rides and stuff as well. And yeah, we're looking forward to that. We're putting a fair bit of work into it and it's all coming together quite well, but still a couple of months away now. Okie doke, into infrastructure changes. Now we had a really big announcement, which I'll get to after this, which is the Bundamba site for EV networks. I have already posted a few sort of progress photos of this one, but this was a photo on PlugShare from today. So the heads are installed. Any idea how that's going, mate? How far away that one is? No. They're 350 kilowatt chargers. I think I don't have it in that photo, but yeah, they've built the transformer right up off the ground because that's a low-lying ground area there. So another two 350 kilowatts. Right, this is the announcement we had in the last month. The much anticipated, much wanted phase 3 of the Queensland Electric Superhighway. So obviously the orange ones on this chart are all the ones that we have existing at the moment, and it's very good if you want to drive along the coast, but a lot of people, including myself, have been asking, you know, what about maybe expanding out into rural Queensland? And this is what's been announced. So if anyone wants this, it's on Facebook, or I can just send you this actual graphic if you like. It's handy. I've just put red pins in the town locations, but you can see there that essentially doing out from Townsville to Mount Isa. I'm a little worried about this gap here. Maybe there should be another charger in there, but this isn't all that the infrastructure is there. There's obviously showgrounds and that type of thing along the way as well. So, I mean, it's not only this, but I think it's always very important to remember that the government has supported EVs in this way. It's very progressive in my opinion. And I think it's just a great idea. I didn't realise they were actually even considering this, so to have this announcement is pretty awesome, really. On top of the rural ones, we're getting Kingaroy and Esk as well, which are helpful. But yeah, I'm going to keep this slide on every month just to, and I'll just update it as new stuff comes online. But a lot of EV DC fast chargers at the moment. We're pretty lucky, and yeah, another 2. Maybe we'll do an ESC run, right? So there's Brisbane, so maybe we'll do an ESC run when that one comes online. That's not too far, maybe not too many hours away. All right, that's about it from me. So we'll get into the speakers. So you guys are up first, front row. We'll go from front to the back, eh? Now, friend, yeah, I'll just over this way, guys.
Where are you going?
I'm going through this way.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So, some 18 months ago, we were looking for a project, and we scored ourselves a i-miev minus a battery. And another club member kindly gave us his dead battery, so we actually had an i-miev that went. We decided that, bit of a shame, nice car, no range because the battery is shot, and apparently there's a lot of i-mievs and mini-cab i-mievs that have got lower range and the batteries are expiring, so there was an opportunity. And it took us a while till we found a manufacturer that would make a battery close to what we wanted in the right sort of chemistry, and we started with that. The first cars we put together, and we found that the car didn't like the battery pack capacity being altered, so the car would take up the full 28 kilowatts of charge. The original battery was 16 kilowatts. It'd take up the full 28 kilowatts of charge, but it would only treat that battery pack like it was an original 16 kilowatt battery, so you get like 100 to 120k range out of that battery pack. But we knew there was way more in it, so Mike and Dave kindly jumped into the project, and we tried some spoofing of the current sensors and so on, which showed promise. And there was one trip there where we got 180 odd kilometres out of the battery pack, so we knew we were on the right track, and we knew that the battery pack was the new batteries were good for the range, but we had to convince the car of what we wanted to do. Anyway, so that's where Francesco came into the picture, and we spoke about the project, and he's kindly jumped on board as well. I'll give you the layman's version of it because it's a little bit above my pay grade, but basically it's a couple of devices that talk to the ECU and the BMS and basically tells it what we want it to know. That was the option, that was plan B, and plan B seems to have worked out all right. So much so that Francesco got excited and kept going with plan B. And so we've got something that's good for in a very best situation, an i-miev that will do around the 240 kilometre range. It now has one pedal driving, which means that when you take your foot off the accelerator, it's almost like jamming your foot on the brake. So it is regulated, it's not just a sudden shunt. Okay, testing, hello, hello. Okay, yeah, that's working. Yeah, so no, it's a regular, like the later model Nissan Leafs. I'm sure there's a lot of other modern cars that do this. The other thing that Francesco realised was that when you're on regen, the brake light doesn't come on, and apparently that's a little bit common on a few electric cars. I wasn't aware of this, but now when the regen comes on this, or the 1 foot, when you're using the one pedal drive system that's been added to it, the brake pedal comes on so that you don't have people running up the back of your car. So that was a good thing. And we also, he also allowed for the addition of cruise control. So with a simple switch that we just get from eBay or wherever, they can be wired in, and now you've got a cruise control situation. I think that's all.
I'll probably end up adding hill hold or something like that.
Okay, so
fix the bushes first.
but wait, there's more. Hill hold, hill hold, and also we've managed to. Well, we can get a lot more get up and go out of the car, but that comes with another set of problems, which is that if we pull too many amps out of it, the car wants to stop. It doesn't want us to go over a certain amperage, but we still have got an improvement on the acceleration.
I think it's about the same. It's more. I still haven't quite figured out what it is that it's looking for, but I could actually get more power if I really wanted to. It's just a matter of the batteries. I think the motor can do a lot more than what the original one does. Yeah.
So that's basically it in a nutshell. We've got a young fellow working for us, Jack, and he has been working on this project with us somewhat, and we're looking at getting some government funding to kick us off to do a sort of a factory refit type of operation.
So you think you're going to commercialise it?
Yeah. No, the maths have been done. There's something like 500 or 600 of these things in Australia. But overseas, under different badges like Citroen and Peugeot, there's another 50 or 60,000 of these things. So we're going to the government with the idea that this is an export market. How we're going to market it, I'm not too sure, but like for us, it's a bit nervous. But yeah, we're going to at least hit the Australian market first, and that way make sure everything works sweet. But you're taking a little car that most of these cars are at that age where they're lucky to get 50, 60 kilometre range out of them. They've got DC fast charging. They're a great little machine. They go like the clappers. They've been well looked after by their owners, even though the battery's degraded now. Bringing it up to a 200 plus K range now puts you on that EV super highway. You can pop into those and get yourself a charge up, and if you choose to drive a little car like that to Cairns, now it would do it.
There's a big market for second-hand cars now, David.
Yeah.
New ones.
I think I've seen some with low range on them for like 10 grand still. I think for a car with a depleted battery, 10,000 is a bit much, So, I guess there's a bit of a hint. Watch this space for Nissan Leaf, the first version. We're already sort of onto that one and starting to do some design work. So if we can get a Nissan Leaf with a 250 to 300k range, which is ideally where we want to be, you see some Nissan Leafs for about 11 grand with bucket batteries or whatever. You throw another 15 into it, 25. You've got yourself a car that's equivalent to maybe, a low end. What's a Kona? What's the one before the Ion? Yeah. So if you get a, say 250k range out of a Nissan Leaf, all of a sudden it becomes usable again. So that's what we're trying to do. Anything to add to that?
If you want
that's top secret. Can't tell you that.
If you want to have a feel, I'll drive it around, and then you can see if you think that you can do that on your car.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's a good idea. He's brought the car here for you to all go for a test drive, and hang on when he goes for the one pedal braking. Yes, it's a little bit of it can be the whiplash sort of situation if you're not careful. But it's definitely puts a lot of current back into the battery pack, which is what we were aiming for in the first place. Yeah. Any questions? I expect to see.
You can go for a drive.
Yeah, see you all out in the car park at the end of the meeting. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I actually have a drive of that myself, and the Kona already has good regen level, but it's a lot different driving that when you know it's actually going to stop. brakes, like we're only talking not using the brake pedal, obviously, just only using the accelerator. As you back off, it starts slowing down. So it's a bit different to driving modern EV as well. So very good. Look, I'm building a battery with Francisco as well for my property, and I get to see some of these updates, and they're good fun. So we'll get Nick and Luke up, or are both of you chatting at the same time? Or can't both of you come up? Yeah, why not? They've done the compliance for the Tesla Model 3, and you've got a presentation. We'll just get that set up. How many test drives have you already done, Francisco? How many rides have you already done, mate? It's not even... How many rides have you already done tonight?
I don't know, I lost count already.
Oh, Les can do anything, don't worry about that. All right, so you guys over on the camera and stream, please.
This is my car that's there with the bumper
Luke.
off.
People might want to see you when you're talking. Yeah.
So this is my car that's parked outside with the back bumper off. So I imported one. I bought my car in September 2019, and this was my 2019 Christmas present. I imported a stealth tow bar, I believe to be the first one in Australia. So it is the US market product, so I had to do a few modifications to it to make it work properly in Australia. The harness, typical American car in the US, it just blinks the brake lights as indicators, so the whole wiring harness was just basically useless, so I built a new one with some bits from ARC, so they're a company that makes tow bar accessories, and it's a little relay isolator box that isolates all of the trailer connections from the tail lights. The Model 3's got very conventional lighting. It is just 12 volts. They go high when they're on and low when they're off sort of lights. There's no CAN bus or anything like that in the lights. So yeah, that's inside of the bumper skin. Yeah, click the next one. So this is all the bits of the bumper bar. There's the main bar itself goes behind the crash bar, so that aluminium crash bar you could see in the first slide. You take that off, put the tow bar mount on, and then put the crash bar back over the top of it. And there's all the wiring harness bits that I basically couldn't use. It also came with a 2-inch tow bar, which is 52 millimetres, which is pretty useless in Australia. We use a 50 millimetre one, so it looks very much the same, but when you go to pick up a trailer, it doesn't fit, and then you have to go to Supercheap and buy a 50 millimetre tow bar, like I did. What I like about the stealth tow bar, as I've seen from a lot of others, it's got a quick release mechanism, so it's like a cam lock kind of thing. There's this block of stainless steel and a latch on the side, so you just drop that off, and with that hitch removed, there's a plastic cover that snaps back over the underskirt of the car, and it's gone. You know, it's totally aerodynamic. There's no clearance problems, anything like that. So I really like that. It also comes with both a tow hitch with a ball, I was talking about before, and you can see them both outside, and this square receiver that's in this picture. So that was my main motivation, was actually just to put bikes on the back of the car rather than towing a trailer. So a proper square receiver is really good for those bike rack mounts. And that's, yeah, there's a key, push button and a key that lets you lock the hitch to the car so that it's double secure. There's a cam lock on one side and a key button thing on the other side, and you latch them both in and it's double safe. Yeah, so that's the tow bar in behind that crash bar. And yeah, so just a bunch of fishing around in wiring harnesses to find the connections to the tail lights. But once you know what you're looking for, and I've sort of documented them all in this webpage, what all the colours are for each of the different lights, they're pretty easy to fish out and find. There's a connector under the skin the rear bumper bar skin for the OEM tow bar adapter module, and it is ground 12 volts and CAN bus, and their adapter harness takes that CAN bus and turns it into all the things a trailer needs. So I use the power from that, but I obviously couldn't use the CAN bus, so I had to go get the lighting signals from the wiring harness of the car. Yeah, so that's splitting into that, the OEM trailer connector. So there's that little yellow wire there, there's a CAN bus wire that isn't much use to me. And yeah, that's probably about it. At the moment, so we got compliance for it recently. Had an engineer come out and push it and pull it. You need to push and pull it to 1.5 times its rated capacity. He did some sort of notepad math on it and figured out that he was only comfortable testing it up to 750 kilos. The manufacturer reckons in typical American style that it's good for, I don't know, 3,000 kilos or something insane. But they've actually only tested it to 750 kilos in their lab as well. They've since tested it to 1,000 kilos, and they said that test was successful, and we're just waiting for the paperwork back on that. And then once we've got that paperwork, the local engineer will translate that into Australian standard sort of language and reissue the compliance at 1,000 kilos. Depending on the car, so a performance Model 3 on 20-inch wheels will only do 500 kilos, a standard range and a long range will do 1,000 kilos. And is that the last slide, I think? Yeah, and that's view up underneath the car. So it's got that removable hatch cover and the removable hitch snaps up into it. And there's a trailer, towing stuff, and weekend ruined, all that. Yeah, and bikes on a rack, that was my main goal, so that I could take my bike places and go for a ride. So Nick and there's a guy called Michael Hua who's created a company basically off the back of importing these tow bars now. So Toka went to the trouble of doing all the compliance and all that and there's probably, I think, about 5 or 6 of us who had personally imported them and sort of fitted them in our backyard like I have. But Michael's actually importing those in volume now in containers, and Nick's a local reseller who will do that end-to-end for you in one hit with a warranty and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're fitting them. So we're fitting them all around Brisbane, anywhere from Harvey Bay down to Tweed Heads, all the way out to Toowoomba basically. We're mobile. We're actually about to. I've just gotten the harness made up, so we're actually going to make it all fully plug and play for behind the lights and everything.
Yeah.
Just so that pretty well anyone can fit it if they want to, if they don't want to pay for someone to come out and do it, if they want to learn more about their car and all the rest of it. So the harness should be ready to go in hopefully the next sort of 2 to 4 weeks. Once that's ready to go, yeah, pretty well will be pretty well plug and play, because I think the hardest thing is pulling the bumpers off a bit scary for some, but once that's off and you've got the nuts and bolts, it's all pretty straightforward, and then it's just the wiring. So if we can eliminate that and make it a bit easier for everyone else to do it, then yeah, it should be good. Hopefully get a few more people out with it. So yeah.
What's the ballpark cost?
Expensive. Nah.
Around 2K.
Yeah, anywhere from 2 to 3 basically. So 2 to 3 grand.
2 to 3 grand.
Yeah. So if you want the full rack. So you get the square hitch receiver, the tow ball fitted, you're looking at about $28.50. So, yeah. But you can go just the standard hitch receiver and fitted and everything for around 2 I think it is. So, yeah. So, but yeah. But as I say, there's nothing else like it sort of on the market, and then it's got the tow rating and all the rest of it, so you know it's safe and you're not going to have to worry about wrecking your insurance or anything above.
The car is complied to tow, so Tesla have long promised a tow bar of their own, so they've gone to the trouble of getting the car itself complied. It's just a matter of getting the tow hitch complied as well, so it's fully end-to-end legit option.
Which I don't think any others are for Australia, are they? I don't think even Eco hitches.
There are other
bars
hitches you can import that are cheaper. But they bolt on. They don't have that quick release mechanism.
Yeah.
I have one. It's outside.
Yeah. What have you got?
I have the talk with one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So we've seen a few. We've seen that one, the Brink and the Eco Hitch as well as the Stealth.
Yeah.
And really, they're all pretty good, but they don't have the compliance as of yet, from what I can understand. But to just just to put a bike rack on or something, they're pretty good.
Can we know about the reversing sensors? Are they a problem when reversing?
They do just squeal the whole time it's in reverse. Yes, there's a mute button on screen, so you can tap that and it'll
tap that, turns off.
It doesn't integrate with the car. So the original Tesla tow hitch, the only place you can get it is factory fit for Europe. It does have a tow mode, so it knows when a trailer's plugged into it and will disable autopilot, disable those rear reversing sensors and all that sort of stuff. Realistically, autopilot works fine, even though you can sort of see the little radar lines around the car saying that it knows there's something near those reverse sensors the whole time you're driving down the highway. Yep. But autopilot works fine. Be careful, don't do anything silly.
I think we just give a warning when we fit them to say, hey, look, don't use autopilot and to auto change lanes and stuff like that, because it doesn't remember there's a trailer or how long it is or anything like that on the back of your car. You don't want to be taking out people as you're changing a lane.
But I've done big trips on it. I've taken bikes and stuff to Rockhampton and had, it hasn't been annoying. It's certainly low. The clearance to the back of that hitch is about that high. So if you go over a dip in a driveway, the big trouble I have is just my own driveway at home is a bit precarious. I have to really come in. If I've got the hitch still attached, I really come in a sharp angle to make it up.
But apart from that, they're pretty.
And Nick, you're doing some other things, aren't you?
Yeah, so I've just started up. So I used to fit these through my first company, which I've still got, and I'm still fitting them through and all the rest of it. But I've actually just started up another company, bringing in aftermarket accessories for EVs. So you won't have to worry about ordering straight from Alibaba anymore or anything like that. We'll have everything in stock in Brisbane. And we're hoping to bring out, so we've got a lot of stuff for Teslas, but we're hoping to bring out a lot more for like Konas and all the Hyundai range and Mercedes and Nissan and all the rest of it. So on the way out, we've got little stickers and little quick QR codes and everything for all the links for the new company and everything. So if there's something that you're sort of wanting and you want us to have a look into, then shoot us a message and let us know what you sort of think and what you sort of are looking for. And we'll, by all means, we'll try and get everything in and sort of see how it goes. And yeah, so we're pretty well going to be shipping everything out of Brisbane to around Australia. So there's a couple of others. There's one in Sydney that does it as well, but from what I can see, there's nothing really in Brisbane that does the same sort of thing. So it should make everything a bit easier for everyone, and they'll have a bit more of a better gut feeling about it all than ordering from over online. So yeah. Cool. Sweet. Okay. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Also, I just want to say thank you to you guys, because Nick is becoming he's getting a business membership with us. And thank you for Luke, he's helping us with the EV experience event as well. Just that type of participation is really helpful. So Nathan, you're up.
So typical sort of movement monthly update. Tonight I wanted to quickly talk about a little program by Energy Queensland, a little bit of an update from the model stuff I did last week. So I talked about a whole bunch of models that were coming to Australia in the next little while, and there's a little bit of update that's occurred in the last month. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a dive into what's going on in EV policy at a national and state level. Not every state, but states that are interesting to us as benchmarks and our own state. So we'll kick off here. I hope it's clear enough. Definitely need a new projector. Get your hand in your pocket, John. And the secretary, I suppose that's probably someone. So if you're not aware, Energy Queensland and Ergon and so on, we had a speaker last month, I think it was. They're really hot in this space. They're doing a really good job around EVs. And one of the things that they're doing is trying to understand more about how EV users are using their cars and their chargers and where they are and so on. And right now, they don't know where all the chargers are. We've not required to tell them where they are, but they'd like to know. And so they've got a little program going where you can register your charger with them and, search for Energex, register your EV, or there's a link there, and you can go in there and you can put in your details and tell them where they are. And they want that data because they want to know where people are for grid impact and some numbers of where they are in locations. They've got it down to postcode, like I do, but they don't have it any further down than that, and they're looking for that. In order to get you excited about that, they're giving $500 cash cards away, times 12 of them, over the next year and a bit, to encourage people to get on that. Giving away your private data might not be something you're into, but in the event of making EVs better, this is what they're looking for. And also they send a newsletter quarterly about what's going on in their world. So you might know that there's a study that a number of us in the room are on, where we've got a little plug in our car, and Energy Queensland are finding out. I know Luke's got one, I've got one, Mark's got one. I think John, you've got one as well? Oh no, a couple of others. Anyway, they know they can take data from your car to work out how you charge, where you drive, and the type of driving you do. They anonymise that, and then they provide some feedback every quarter. So the reason I threw this in at the last minute was I got the newsletter today and it said all this stuff, so I thought I'd share it. So that's Energex, Energy Queensland's project on knowing more about EVs. That is the Smart Charge program, yes. So that's linked to the Smart Charge program. That's the data program where you put a box in your car. This bit here is about understanding where those charges are. The Smart Charge program is kind of closed. There's about 250 people involved in that, and it's going to run for however long it's going to run for. This is sort of in addition to that. So we'll flick on to the next page. So I just wanted to give a little bit of an update around EV availability, some models and so on. Last month I mentioned a couple of models, and for those who may have seen, AEVA had a webinar with the head of Nexport, Luke Todd, who is the importer for BYD product in Australia, and he announced a number of different models, vehicles, time frames and so on at that one. So, if you've got an hour to knock yourself out on, please feel free to. I did it this week. And look, broadly, they're talking about bringing a number of vehicles to market. There was another press release today where it talked about the vans coming first, but the press release last week said that the E6 was coming first. They're all coming. And then also the one that seemingly everybody's talking about is this EA1, or Dolphin as it's known in China. So these little cars from BYD are touted to be cheap, reasonable range, Chinese made, and coming soon. So keep your eye out for that if that's something that interests you. One of the ones that interest me is Cupra. So one of Volkswagen's many brands. And funnily enough, for a time now, Volkswagen have said they're not going to bring the ID3 to Australia. They're also not going to bring the ID4 to Australia. Seat aren't going to bring the ENIAC to Australia. So all these great cars that are based on the Volkswagen MEB platform are not going to come to Australia. Yet, just recently, here we go. Just wait for the noise box to come back. Testing, 1, 2, 3, there we go. So just recently, Volkswagen Australia appointed a new head of Australia for Cupra. I was like, oh, why would you do that? Brand's not been in Australia for a long time. Seat was here in the 90s. I remember fixing Seats in the 90s because they didn't like the heat despite coming from Spain. And they're bringing Cupra to Australia. Now, they will launch Cupra brand quite soon, but sort of the back end of the first half of 22, but they're not going to launch with the Cupra Born, which is the ID3 based car. That is going to come a little later. So for me, it's a pretty exciting car. It's an MEB platform car. It's going to have some spicy motor in it. It looks amazing. I think it looks absolutely spot on. So that's a cool one to look out for. And they lobbed their timings just this week. So I'm going to move on from there to talk about policy. Now, this is something that Mark and I work in every day. This is what Movement does. We particularly do a lot of work around policy, around EVs and decarbonisation of transport. And so we stay around this sort of stuff. So it's an area of the space that can be a bit boring for people, and the news pulls the bits out that it wants to. But we like to consolidate it and bring it back to you. So a little bit of an update. Now, I talked last month about New Zealand, just at the point of time last month's meeting, that they just launched their fee-bait program where they're going to charge polluting vehicles more and they're going to give money to EVs. And so I just thought I'd refresh that. They're giving 8,500 New Zealand to a new BEV. So, it's the thick end of 8,000 Australian, right? That's a lot of money, and it's going to go a long way. There's also what they've done there as well, because of New Zealand's import market, they're actually giving an amount of money to imported vehicles as well. It's about 5,000 or so New Zealand dollars, so not as much as a newly OEM imported vehicle, but if they're pulling a Leaf out of Japan, say for instance, they're going to see 5,000 New Zealand off it. Pretty cool. And for those who might have seen in the last sort of week or so, the EU has come out and they've proposed, it's not law yet, but it will be, they've proposed that 2035, that all new vehicles must emit 100% less than they're allowed to today. So that means zero. So that means no more ICE cars in Europe from 2035. 2035. So that's a bit of a big deal. There's also the requirement for a reduction of 55% from today's numbers by 2030. And broadly, you can't achieve that without a plug. So 2030 is going to be plug-in vehicles only. So it's a really interesting, clear signal that it sends to the OEMs. So that's fleet average for each brand, but then that has to be delivered at 100% later on, and you can't make negative carbons. So there's going to be a balance over the coming years, and then it's going to get down to a nice ban basically by 2035. So pretty interesting things that are coming out of the EU. It's about as hardcore as it gets, and it's really going to send a message to the world that they're serious and they're a very large market. So if we come a little bit closer to home, now I'm sure I'll get heckles, boos and hisses from the crowd, but the feds have put forward the national policy, which is the Future Fuels Strategy, FFS, and the Future Fuels Fund. And it's a fairly early stage commitment at this point, where one piece of the program has gone out. But the program is basically $75 million to do EVs, to do light vehicles, not EVs, to do light vehicles, to support light vehicles with future fuels, with future technologies, to update. Parallel to that, there's another $25 or so million, a little less than $25 million for heavy vehicle policy as well, about reducing emissions around heavy vehicles. So these two together, $100 million, let's reduce carbon around transport. Great, it's a start. It's very much a technology focus. It's not about EVs, it's not about fuel cells, but it's just broadly around technologies that will enable a reduction in carbon in light vehicles, but it's also got this strange flip of consumer choice. It's all about making sure the consumer can make a choice as to what vehicle they want to buy. Now in Europe, they've just said, you'll buy what we'll tell you. But in Australia, we're going to give everybody a choice, and I feel it's lovely to have a choice to go out and buy an EV. So this $75 million is made up of a bunch of rounds of funding. We don't know what they all are yet, but what we do know is round one was $16 million more for charging. And $3 million of that is going to come for us here in southeast Queensland in two packages of $1.5 million. They're now closed, so those tenders have gone out to charging companies have put in their bid, and those bids are now being reviewed, and someone will win them. And it's a package of best value, best place, best speed, best everything, and the winner will take all. There's other things that are going to be around supporting corporate fleets, public information, and also manufacturing technology. So, keep an eye out for that, Graham and Francesco, on what might be able to come for new techs around enabling zero-emission vehicles. Look, we think that we'll find out more over the coming months, maybe the next 2 or 3 months. Some of these other packages will come out, and some of the how do I get some money might come out of that as well. So that's the feds. A little underwhelming at $74 million. So if we'll keep that in mind, put that number away. So if we flick to the next slide, we're going to pretty much focus on the states, because that's where the action's happening. States have got it going on, and now, as the states like to do in Australia, those big ones, they like to start fighting each other for who's got the best package. So a lot of data on the slide. I'd like to pick it apart. I'd like to use some questions if anybody's got them along the way. But if we cut it a couple of ways, if we cut it by Queensland, down the middle, down the old maroon strip for those Queenslanders here, I've got purchase incentives, stamp duty, rego, charging money, road user charging, and a fleet target for the government's own vehicles as key kind of policies that a lot of people have put in place. And in Queensland, we've got basically a half to 2/3 kind of stamp duty process. We pay about 2% for stamp duty here, so it's not nothing, but it's a good reduction. We do have a reduction in rego. We're charged as a single cylinder vehicle here in Queensland. They've put plenty of money into charging because we've seen what John showed us earlier on with the cash, and now the cash is literally the most advanced fast charging network in Australia, possibly the world when it comes to a sizable state like ours. We have a lot of charging now, we really do. And it's great because it's just opened up most of the state. So going okay, but if you like, it's kind of stage one. That's what everybody did before. And now what we're seeing is some of the big states coming out with what's happening now. So you can see up the top there that New South Wales and Victoria are putting out $3,000 for a new vehicle purchase. Nothing on used, but it's all around new. They kind of start now or September, and they're both kind of, putting their stall out there that there's something happening. So that's a bit of a big moment there. You'll notice that charging's very common. Pretty much every state, except for the NT, has thrown money at charging so far. Tasmania has more charges per car, per population, or kilometres of any place just about there is because of the nearly $1 million that they put out there. Well, was released today. Well, there you go. So one charger at the Howard Springs pub. So I used to live in Darwin, so I know it reasonably well. NT, that's good. We'll see what that comes out with. I'll read that one tomorrow morning. I'm not going to go into every detail here, but just to say that every state seems to broadly have a strategy. Every state has broadly put something on the table. Some are more advanced than others. The dreaded road user charge thing, interesting bit down here, don't want to get into it. Victoria have dug a hole and now they are now clearly lying in it very comfortably, and everybody else is laughing from the ground level. It's an interesting one, but I think one of the key things that we're interested in here at Movement, the work that we do, is this state government fleet target piece. We help Tasmania make that decision in our work, and we certainly hope to help some of the other states find a way to enact those policies. So just wanted to dig very quickly into New South Wales, which is the next slide. Any questions here? What if you buy a BEV in Vic to get the rebate and then move to Queensland? Most of Vic seems to. Okay. I love that. Most of Vic seems to. Haven't played that scenario out. Not sure how you would do it. You'd have to own a building in both states. You'd have to have an address in both states. I know when I was selling Teslas, there was people who were in New South Wales who were trying to find a way to register their car in Queensland so that they could have a lower stamp duty and they could have a lower registration than in New South Wales. So,
$2,500 for your quarantine as well.
and then there's the quarantine. So maybe it's all going to get taken up in quarantine. Good idea. Good point. So New South Wales. So can anybody remember how much the feds had put behind their EV strategy? $75 million. New South Wales. $490 million. How much were we spending on charging first round? $16 million. How much is New South Wales spending on charging? 10 times more. So it's a really interesting difference what we're seeing in the way that the states are moving ahead of the federal position, because the feds, well, they're just floundering and doing enough to be not embarrassing, but New South Wales has really grabbed this by the horns and going. Lots and lots of packages, lots and lots of programs, not going to talk about all of them, but there's loads of consumer information as part of their program, and that's exciting because I think, my personal thoughts, the sort of things that we do, you can throw charging, you can throw money at the problem, you can incentivise vehicles, but actually most of our problem is education. And the challenge is for policy and for politicians is that you can't cut a ribbon on education. You can't put a thing in the ground and have everybody come up and clap and cut a ribbon on it, like charging, but you don't get the same impact. So education, knowledge, information share is a really important part of the EV transition process. So Give It a Whirl, for instance, is a great example of EV education, of getting bums on seats and people hearing about what it is about EVs. They're also looking at grid integration projects, obviously things like V2G, which is going to be part of their package. So New South Wales, gold standard broadly, particularly here in Australia. Let's have a look at Queensland. So Queensland's been an early mover. They had the Future is Electric program, which was led by TMR in 2017. That's what drove the cash. It drove lots of other programs. If you've ever been into the basement of TMR, there's a whole bunch of EV chargers and a whole bunch of EVs, and it's all brought out of that Future is Electric project. This last couple of weeks, they went to redo their zero emission vehicle strategy, their ZEV strategy for Queensland. They're in consultation right now. Did anybody do the online survey that you may have seen Graham and myself kind of like whizzed it out there? Yeah, great. So that got a bunch of responses. You could also write an email and put in a submission, and there is a bunch of responses for that too. So they're in the process of taking on all those responses, considering the pressures from other states, and considering what they're going to do as part of their next level ZEV strategy. So that's encouraging, and I would expect that later this year we will see Mr. Bailey and the whole team from TMR and so on come out with what is Queensland's new ZEV strategy, which is exciting. And I think they're well placed, given the early work was really, really good, and this time now where we're seeing other states do some pretty wild stuff, it's a good time, I think, to be a Queenslander with an interest in EVs. So that's I just wanted to flick to the final slide here of any sort of great level, and maybe we'd take some photos. This is difficult to see, I get that. Each half year, TMR put out an EV snapshot. So this one's a couple of months old, but it's really interesting. So you can go to the website. You can go to the Queensland Government. This is just a snapshot straight off the TMR website. And within that, it's got a bunch of information about charging, so electric superhighway usage, kind of interesting information over there. And it's got information about where vehicles are registered or how many vehicles are registered. This 50% block is 50% of all of the EVs registered in Queensland are Model 3s. So we said before there's lots of Model 3s, 50%. And in fact, when you add that up to Model S and Model X, 75% of all cars that are EVs in Queensland are Teslas. So go and have a look at that on the webpage if you're particularly interested in that. The TMR electric vehicle snapshot, and the next one will come out back end of this year, I think. Grab the little blue. Let's grab the little blue box over there and get some mics to people. Which other category is that?
All of the,
That's what all these are.
all, well, I mean, there's more than 10 EVs in the state. So there's all the homes and build EV modifications, the nibbles in that list going out.
Yeah, they're in there, I think, I'm pretty sure. But maybe it is, but certainly their data. I haven't pitched that against my data because I've got better things to do. But broadly, that is a fairly in line. That's registrations. That's all registrations. Yep. Yep. Any other questions on policy, on what governments are doing, want to do, what you'd like to see them do? I mean, I don't know what the time's like, but 8:30 now, 8:35 now. Has anybody got any thoughts around that? I know you're always interested. Yeah, did you want to ask a question or? Yeah, let's flick the box. There we go. Because I'm always interested to hear what you've got to say. I know that this is something that takes some, your mind, it's always on your mind. Talk into the box for us so we can hear. It's a microphone, yeah.
I wanted to dispute the view that the state government has that EV charge registration is cheaper, because I own an EV and I also own a nice car, and the EV was a couple of $100 more.
That's interesting.
Side by side.
What's your other car? What's your petrol car? AEVA Matiz, yeah. So there's something not quite right there.
I looked at it side by side, and I couldn't, because I was doing some work for Solar Citizens on this.
Yep.
And I wanted, because they were meeting our vote, that's right, and I said, do you want to take some figures on this? And that's what I thought.
And your electric car is a Leaf, is an i-miev. So my thoughts are, there's every possibility that your i-miev is not set up properly in the system, and it's not seeing that it's an electric car, because... Okay, because go on.
Because the single rotor is the same reg over 3-cylinder, and that's what the Matiz is.
Ah, so it should be the same price.
It's not the same,
It's more expensive.
Oh, it shouldn't be. They should be the same.
Yeah. I can see how it potentially is the same price. Certainly an EV is considered a single rotor or single cylinder vehicle, and the Matiz is a 3-cylinder vehicle.
680 for the Kona.
Yeah, 680 versus. So I've got two cars. I've got a 4-cylinder car and a Tesla, and the 4-cylinder car is about $350 more a year than the Tesla. So we can do a little bit on that for you to see what we can help you out with. But yeah, I'd like to see the two of them next to each other, because you can do it on the line and you can quickly work out what it should be.
Coalition government is talking about education about EVs, and I really dread to think what that can do, given the amount of garbage that's come out of it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So,
education in the New South Wales government is doing seems really interesting and legit about CO2.
Well, that's also a coalition government.
Yeah, I know, but it's got that thing.
Sure does, and Minister Constance as well for transport, who's. Well, with a bit of luck, we might be helping them do that. So that's a start. That's a hope that we might be part of the process of generating that information. Great. Yes, it is a Labor government that brought in the silly EV tax in Victoria, and that's because the Treasurer wasn't comfortable with giving a free ride, and he's certainly taken a panning for that. What is that information going to be? At the Feds level, it'll be really interesting to see how that comes out. My concern is that it will be guided by a number of different lobby and a number of different insights, whereas New South Wales seems to be fairly wholesome. You know, there's an approach to that. That is, we're going to do this right. Got over here.
Regarding policy around electric vehicles, I'm curious what the strategy is around fuel cell vehicles versus EVs. There seems to still be a lot of dithering between the two, particularly the passenger vehicles, where there's a lot of commitment to electric vehicles, which makes a lot of sense, and this kind of planning with fuel cell on the side, for example, in Canberra, the fuel cell installation is just one end, where we're seeing mass rollout of chargers in Queensland and people throwing millions of dollars of chargers in New South Wales now. Why are they still playing around with fuel cells for passenger vehicles?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Mark and I talked to each other, and we said we're going to do fuel cells next month. We're going to have a crack at hydrogen for you, which is we've already done a fair bit of work in that space and interesting stuff, and we probably put a few things out there which will be interesting for our own reputations. But we'll certainly have a pull it apart. But to the point, it seems to be just like hydrogen seems to be ideological globally. So the Japanese are into it. Everybody else is kind of like, not sure. there seems to be some states who are ideologically more aligned to hydrogen. What I think you're starting to see is a switch from hydrogen in light vehicle transport and maybe even heavy vehicle transport, and you'll see a switch to the conversation around production of hydrogen. So there's going to be a ton of money, like we're talking billions, which is going to be hosed into hydrogen over the coming 10 years. And that hydrogen money is I think is going to mostly go towards the making of hydrogen. I'm not sure if we're going to see much even in the way of someone spending money on building a hydrogen filling station, or if it is, it's going to be, just like ACT has, it's going to be very few and far between. There are only 3 in the country. One's at a Toyota, one's at the head office of Hyundai, and the other one is in Canberra. There's 43 in California, and only 24 are currently working. And there is 18 in the UK, and only about 6 or 7 are working.
Steve Duncan's doing it up in Gladstone, but...
Yep. Good luck to Steve.
But he's also creating the demand.
Good luck to Steve.
Doing supply and the demand.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes is you have to make the hydrogen. We'll do this next month. You have to make the hydrogen where you're going to use it. Because if you're going to ship it, it costs a fortune. Pretty much as blank as that.
I think once he finds out how much energy he loses in work,
He knows I asked him.
Oh, so flick it across. Mark's going to add something to that, and I'd love to hear Mark add something to that.
I think round 2 of the Future Fuels Fund is going to fund hydrogen fuels. But I think that point about ACT investing comes down to the fact that they classify, most states classify BEVs and fuel cell vehicles as zero emission, and that's the most important factor. So that's why they're funding those states.
Great. Any last questions on any of those topics? Oh, Graham's got one. Quick catch. Whoa! And that's why it bounces.
Simone had a question.
Oh, yep. Ask you to build...
The mic doesn't work now.
Yeah, that's right. Go on, Graham.
So, you're talking about the registration report, and the thought struck me is that any one, Tesla make cars with one motor, a Tesla 3 comes with a single motor, so that rego should be the same as the i-miev, same as the car and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Why don't we just publish that so all the EV owners here know how much rego they should be paying, if they're not, and how to deal with it?
How much rego they should be paying? You just go to the TMR website and say my car's electric, and it'll pop out and say $636 a year. That's what it is. So we'll go and have a look at Jan's particularly and do a little. Yeah. I mean, you know, it should be as simple as it's the electric rate that's on the TMR site that you can go to, and you can say how much is quote for, just like you can go in and put your stamp duty quote, as I did the other day. Looks like we're out again, and I'll call it quits there. As always, flick to the next slide. As always, if you've got any ideas on what you'd like, Mark and I to talk about, each month we will come out and we'll talk about some things. Sounds like next month we're going to hit hydrogen. What's that? Hydrogen. Done.
Next month.
Rock and roll. Thank
you.
you.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much, Nathan. You're up, buddy. Have you got a presentation? Or
No, I'm just going to...
You're just going to talk?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I might wait here and just ask questions.
Cool. Yep. I'm Xavier. I was here probably a few years ago with the electric Commodore, if anybody may remember that. It was a while ago. But as you may tell, I have a penchant for weird vehicles. This one in particular, there's 45 in Australia. There's 17,000 of them globally. There's less Honda Insights than there are of the Honda NSX, as in the original Honda NSX, the good one. It's the first hybrid on the Western market, not the first out of Japan. Technically the Prius beat them, but then Honda beat Toyota to the punch in the US and everywhere else. So they were pretty proud about that. And they both had a host of problems that any first generation car has, such as killing hybrid batteries and all of that kind of thing. This car in particular, I've done quite a bit of work to. It's actually a bit of a survivor car from a pickles auction.
Don't look too closely, it's golf balled for aerodynamics from hailstones. But the hybrid batteries in these, because it's a first generation car, they do die, and it's essentially the car killing it itself over a number of years. But all modern hybrids from this generation onwards don't have the problem anymore because they learnt how to balance the batteries properly and actually deal with a nickel metal hydride battery. Obviously it looks pretty weird because it's a first generation hybrid car. Essentially what Honda did was they said, we're going to be peak Honda weird, that's my favorite kind of Honda, and we're going to compromise everything for efficiency. Ride comfort, power, drivability, aesthetics, sure. And it's the most efficient car for 15 years running, 16 years actually, from 2000 to 2016 and a bit when Toyota released a Prius to beat it, essentially. This one's done 4 litres per 100 kilometres for its 170 something thousand kilometres, which is pretty hard to beat. Not incredible, let's say. I mean, Camrys now do 5, 6 kind of thing, but this is from 2001. So it's really a marked example of somebody trying for efficiency. And I guess one of the reasons that I want to talk about that is this is a great example of what you can do when you actually hone and refine a car for a goal like efficiency. A great example of that, a great modern example of that is the Hyundai Ioniq. A Hyundai Ioniq can be twice as efficient as a Model S when driven efficiently. It's an incredible car. Hyundai's really realized that we don't need a car to have a 100 kilowatt hour battery and really push the boundaries of how many batteries you can cram in if we make it light and we make the drivetrain efficient and we make it aerodynamic, not quite this aerodynamic, but you know, almost as good. It's got a very similar shape and silhouette and all of that kind of thing. You know, you can really take a lot of traits from a weird little car like this into any modern car and care about the right thing to get more range without compromising anything else. And this is kind of not quite the leader. Let's say the GM EV1 kind of beat it to the punchline on a lot of styling cues and caring about efficiency, but there aren't really many GM EV1s around. Any questions?
Battery size.
It's a 0.9 kilowatt hour hybrid battery. Not enough to drive on, really. The way this works is different to the way a Prius works, in that a Prius is an electric car with a petrol generator. However, because of the way they're all coupled together mechanically, if you kill the battery in a Prius, it can't drive. This is essentially a petrol car with an electric flywheel. So I can turn off the hybrid battery in this and drive it around. But with the hybrid battery, it's much more punchy and all of your low-end torque is electric, up to 6,000 RPM kind of thing, because it's a Honda and it revs out really high. Really high.
How many were brought into Australia?
So this is one of 9 red Honda Insights in Australia. There's 13 silver ones. There were 2 black ones until someone wrote one off, probably taking a corner way too fast. Total was 45. So I think that's closer to 30 now kind of thing. There's a number in garages. There's one on the side of the road in Brisbane that hasn't moved for 15 years. They're a weird car. They definitely need a lot of, let's say, sympathy for the fact that it's the first generation car. A lot of owners, the US was the largest market, 12,000 cars. A lot of owners in the United States either disconnect the hybrid battery entirely and forget that it exists and drive it around as a gutless petrol car, or they do the right thing, in my mind, and condition the hybrid battery with what they call a grid charger, which brings it back to health and back to 100% capacity.
Is there the opportunity to do maybe what Graham's doing with the i-miev to some degree?
Yeah, so Insight Central is the forum that is kind of the religion of a Honda Insight owner, and there's a group on there that are doing a lithium titanate battery upgrade, but at present it's a very engineering intensive exercise to do so. It's not commercially designed or anything like that. It's very much a select few people, half a dozen people who are working intensively on that.
What's the engineering challenge?
Fitting it in the car in a way that is easy for someone to do. Most people either will recondition these batteries themselves just with new battery cells, or buy them in the United States because there's enough people there to actually do it. I do technically have a design for a lithium titanate pack that's a swap for the existing nickel metal hydride pack without modifications to the enclosure. But because of the number of cars, unlike the i-miev where there's actually a few more, there's probably, I would guess, 7,000 of these on the road in the world. And so the commercial viability drops rapidly, kind of thing.
What's your favourite thing about the car?
The driving experience. Because Honda compromised everything for the sake of efficiency, if I can find my keys, the car is super lightweight. So this car weighs 850 kilos factory. Everything from the bolstering that doesn't exist to the steering wheel being a rubberized one instead of the leather one to save a couple of grams. The car weighs nothing. Like, it's super light. It's also a manual hybrid, one of 3, I think. The Civic in the States and the CRZ, if you can get one. And all of that with the weight means that it drives like a go-kart. It's hilarious fun. I mean, everyone says a Mini drives like a go-kart, but if you actually manage to get grippy tyres, it will out-handle a Mini. It's hilarious fun. So there's like 2 more generations of Insight, but they're not a Honda Insight. The CRZ, all the styling cues, like the triangular brake lights and all of that kind of thing, it's, let's say, the true successor to the Insight. 1100, I think, but more powerful. Sorry?
Front or rear?
Front, unfortunately. It's a Honda.
Any questions, guys? Grab the mic, grab the box.
And yes, I want to EV convert one if I ever get my hands on one with a dead engine. It's a 1 litre 3-cylinder with VTEC because it's a Honda.
Do you want to actually discuss I think we discussed that it's not a standard engine efficiency. They decompress.
Yep. So speaking of Honda compromising everything, so the engine is essentially an unconventional. Most engines are what's called an Otto cycle. You've got the same amount of compression and expansion in every part of the cycle. This is what's called an Atkinson cycle. So your compression stroke is actually a smaller volume than your expansion stroke, and they do that by keeping the intake valves open. The reason for that is that most of your loss in a petrol engine is pumping the engine. An engine is just an air pump that you put fuel in and explode it, essentially. So if you can pump less air, there's less resistance and there's less loss, and so it's a much more efficient engine. But Atkinson cycle engines are much less torquey and much less powerful and all of that kind of thing, but Honda said, well, we're sticking a big electric motor on the crank and that takes care of all of those problems.
Excellent. No other questions?
It's a weird car. It's one to kind of just look at.
What the best thing was? What's the worst thing about the car?
The fact that it kills hybrid batteries.
So you gone through a couple?
I've reconditioned actually about 6 of the cars in Australia, a couple in Melbourne, one here in Brisbane that ran me down from the side of the road and said, "I've got one of these in a garage, how is yours driving?" And this one, and this is where I look like a weird Honda Insight owner, my other one. Silverstone metallic, silver. Honda likes their colour names. This one's Formula Red.
All right, well...
Thanks.
Everyone thank Xavier for bringing his car along. Something different. We, as an EV club, probably tend to be anti-hybrid and even pretty against PHEV at times, even though they have larger batteries than the hybrids, and you can drive them purely on electricity a lot of the time, and they have a redundant 4-cylinder or something in there. But thank you once again. Guys, that's pretty much it for tonight. I might stand in front of the camera so people can see me. We normally break for those that it's their first time for tea and coffee, and we have a chat about all the stuff we've discussed tonight. So thank you all for coming along.